Hey there folks, this is TornadoTwins with Unity Prefabs, and it's time for something very exciting, and we can finally reveal our artificial intelligence prefabs. Now in this case, this little prefab here is going to help anything in your game to shoot at something. So for example, laser towers you can make with this. You can make machine guns, you can make tanks, you can make catapults, all that sort of stuff. As long as you have the 3D art, you can make it shoot with this prefab. Now, make count here that this prefab does not help you in movement. So for example, if you have a tank, it will help you with the rotating part of the tank and the part that shoots, but it's not going to move the tank for you. This one is only for the shooting parts of enemies. This is very handy because that way you can very flexibly add it into your game or use different prefabs from unityprefabs.com for movement of your characters so that you can easily connect together the gameplay you're after. Now first let me demo what we have here. We have 3 towers. First of all, we have a machine gun turret. If I get closer, it notices me, it turns around and it starts shooting. As you can see, there's some particles at the point where it shoots, and there's some particles at the player where he gets hit. Then let me walk over to the next turret here, and this one is a laser based one, so it rotates, it finds me, and it shoots lasers right at me, and I can try to dodge them a little bit. And then when I'm out of range, it stops again. And then if there's any collision in between me and the turret, of course I don't get hit either. And then last but not least, we have the projectile one, and it sort of functions like a catapult. It just throws projectiles at you at the rate that you want it to. Now, of course, these are the 3 examples that may or may not fit your game, so let me show you how to very quickly, in only a minute or so, make a turret do all these kinds of things. Now first let me open up a little bit of an art library that comes with this prefab, and there's a turret in there. If I click it, you can see this is the turret. Let me drag it on the screen here, and I'm going to position it exactly on 0, 0, 0. Now right now I'm doing this in Unity 3.0, but of course this works in the other versions of Unity also. Let me select this turret here, and let me just get rid of it for a second so that we can focus on the one that I just made. Now this turret right now is an art prefab, so you can see it's still blue, it still has a prefab connection, and it consists of 2 parts. First the turret, and which is the whole thing with the body basically, and then second is the top part, which is the rotating head. So let me rename this to rotating head just to make things easier. Now what I also want to do is I want to add an empty game object of where I am going to shoot from. Now this is very easily done. This game object create empty, and it creates an empty game object right here. Let me move it in front of the turret, and then from the side let me move it up a little bit so that it's in front of this red thing right here. Of course I could go for the other barrels as well, but I'm just going for the middle for right now. Now that I have that, I'm going to add this game object to the rotating head, and it's going to say, hey, as soon as you do that, you lose a prefab connection. That's fine. Alright, so now these parts are separate even though they're still mounted to each other. Now what I do is I find a little script called turret AI, and this basically turns this turret into something that actually works. So I'm just going to drag it on top of the whole turret. And as you can see, what happens immediately is that a range is set around the turret. Actually there's 2 ranges. One of them, the outer ring, is the range where it engages you and it starts looking for you, and then the other ring is the range of where it can shoot you. So as soon as you come closer, it will actually start firing. Now if you don't want to see these rings the whole time in your editor, because they may or may not start getting a little annoying when you have a lot of turrets, you can check this box, show ranges in editor, and it just turns it off or on. Now let's look at the variables that we can tweak here, and there's quite a lot we can play with to make a very flexible attacking enemy. First of all, it says attack these, and this is an array, and this is a list of game objects that it will attack as soon as they get close. Now in this case we want to attack the player, but of course, we didn't bind it to the player only because, for example, if you're making a tower defense game, some towers you actually want to be yours and not from the enemy, and they're still computer controlled, so you can change whatever it attacks. Very handy. You can do this, of course, at runtime in your script as well. So I'm going to change the size of the attack to 1, and then it adds 1. Of course, you can add as many as you want, and then I'm going to drag the player right in there, so now it knows to attack the player as soon as it comes close. Now then it asks us what is the rotating part of the turret, so I'm going to just drag this right onto the rotating part, and it will rotate that now for us. And then it asks us what is the end of the barrel, where do we want to shoot from? Well, we just added that, and that's this empty game object, so I'm going to add that there. Now I can set my ranges. For example, my engage range could be 25, and you can see it updates and it gets bigger. And I can change my firing range. I'll leave it to the default right now. Then it also is going to ask us what effects do you want to play as soon as it fires, as soon as it hits, as soon as it misses something, as soon as it reloads, and as soon as it locks onto the target. There is all kinds of things you can do. Now this prefab comes with a couple of predefined prefabs here that you can use. I'm just going to drag this fire effect on the firing here, and I'm going to make this a laser tower. So for the actually I'm not going to use the fire effect, I'm going to use the laser effect right here. Boom. Okay, and then what we want to do when we get hit, then I'm going to use the hit effect, and this will play on the player position when it gets hit. And then what do we want to do when he actually misses? So when he hits the ground or something, then you could add some decals or whatnot for the miss effect. And then I'm going to leave the reload open and the target lock open also. So let me see if this works already. This should work already. There's a couple more variables that we'll look in a second, but right now the laser turret should actually work. So let me run the game, and let me walk over to this second laser turret here. As you see, it notices me and it starts firing right away. Okay, now not very nice yet, so let's add some more effects here. For example, let's turn this into a projectile based one by just dragging a projectile onto the projectile prefab. And this doesn't turn into an angled turret unless you check the box is angled projectile. So right now it's not going to use a laser, but it's going to use an angled projectile. I'm just going to change the fire effect here to a different one. And then let's see what this does. I'm just going to walk over. And now as you can see, with only 2 clicks or somewhat, it turned into a turret that actually shoots projectiles instead. Now these are simple spheres, but you can change it into pretty awesome bombs and whatnot. So very cool. And then you can have a couple of variables here to actually change the speed of how things work. You have a think delay, so how long the turret needs to think. So if you tweak that, as well as the fire speed of how fast it shoots, and the reload speed, and the clip size for Uzi kind of effects, that sort of thing, then it really changes the gameplay so that you can tweak it towards how easy it is to defeat a turret or a tower versus how hard it is. So you can make it harder over time in script as well, which is really cool. Then you can change the rotate speed of how fast the rotating part of the turret actually finds you. And then there's animation support also in case you want to reload and fire and you want to have different things. This turret is a little simple. It doesn't have any animations, but for example, if you want these Falcon guns to rotate, you can add an animation for that and tell the prefab what animations to play. Very handy, of course, if you have a catapult or something like that. So that's about it, but also you can make your own projectiles. You don't have to use the presets that we have here, and there is a script called Turret AI Projectile. Just add that to your projectile, and you can set a couple of variables of what the explosion effect might be when it hits the floor, that sort of thing. And that way you are good to go with anything that you want to see shooting. So very cool prefab. It's pretty much usable for anything that you want as long as it's computer controlled, and you can find it on unityprefabs.com. Well, thanks so much for watching and taking the time for this, and also make sure you check out the other artificial intelligence prefabs on unityprefabs.com. Cheers, bye.